Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Podcasters Unleashed. We're back with another discussion from podcasters all around the world, multiple perspectives. And today we are discussing accents and how or if they affect your lifestyle and your experiences. So if you have had an experience where your accent has had an impact on your opportunities or on the way that people have perceived you, or in fact in the way that you've perceived somebody else, join the discussion. We'd love to hear from you. And before we do that, I would like to hand over to my lovely co-hosts to introduce themselves. Simon, over to you.
Hi, I'm Simon Rushton. Taxi Chronicles is my podcast. I've interviewed lots of hundreds and hundreds of people. They share their gift about their life experience and also job opportunities and true life issues. So it's short, it's 5 to 20 minutes, to have a listen. And just to add, when you see one of us looking down, we're just sharing the link. That's all we're doing. We're not falling asleep or paying attention. Over to you, Matilda.
Hello, everyone. I'm Matilda, host of Coffee with Matilda, Journey to Self. My podcast is about finding yourself, loving yourself, and coming out of adversity stronger than before. Over to you, Victor.
Hi, I'm Victor. I am the host of the Aspire Entrepreneurs podcast, where we talk about strategies of how to get off the 9 to 5 and move into the lifestyle of freedom. Over to you, Carla. Hala.
Thanks, Victor. So I'm the host of the podcast Women with Stories. You can check a new episode just uploaded yesterday about how to deal with loneliness. You can find on Spotify, iTunes, and all other podcast platforms. Back to you, Carla.
And I'm Carla Magdalene. I'm also the host of the Wonder and Wellbeing podcast, which is a podcast for parents and teachers that talks all about education and wellbeing and all the things that connect us together. And you can catch all of our podcasts everywhere that you find podcasts. Now, back to our topic for today. So for many years, academics around the world, the US, the UK, Europe, everywhere, have been investigating the link between our accents and the way that people view us or respond to us. There's one particular study that I know about here in the UK from the Bath Spa University, which showed that people in the UK tend to have a bias against the accent from Birmingham. So people from Birmingham have a very strong accent, and they are perceived to be less trustworthy and less intelligent just based on their accent. So to the audience, I'd like to ask this question and get your feedback on that. Do you feel your accent creates negative or positive outcomes? So send us your comments here on Facebook. You can also watch us over on our YouTube channel if you have any issues, and send us your answers to that question. So let's see what our co-hosts think or what your experiences have been. Simon, when were you first aware that accents or the way you speak can affect your life and the way people respond to you, and what kind of experiences have you had?
Unmute yourself.
I believe it's when I went to secondary school, and my secondary school was very diverse, and there's people from all cultures, all religions there, and no one wore school uniform as well. So it became accents actually matched how you dressed, because you dress in the clothes that your mum or you managed to choose. And you start to see people get in groups depending on how they speak and how they interacted with other people. Also, it was an influence of how the teacher would deal with you. If the teacher not just saw you because of your culture background, but also how you articulated yourself. And then there was the issue of when it comes to work experiences, like no one explained in school that you should have you could say a telephone voice or a professional voice. But then at home, I realized, especially considering I was adopted, when I left my adopted parents and went to my birth father's family, they would have their typical hardcore Jamaican accent. But if they picked up the phone, it was the best Queen's English possible, which my grandma actually struggled with. But my dad could do it very well. He was a builder, and he did a very strong Cockney accent. And then he would turn to myself or my sister to tell us off in a heavy Jamaican accent. And they just switching one to the other. So those are the first times I realized that there's a thing called accents and how it affects you. And obviously, as life has gone on, I've realised how to navigate life. And in arguments, I'm still doing it, because if I live overseas, there's accents there you don't even know about when you're trying to learn the language. Back to you, Carla.
Yeah, so I think you bring out something quite interesting there. There's a crossover, isn't there, between being multilingual or bilingual and also accents. So actually, sometimes some accents are so strong that they could be considered another language, like the Caribbean patois. It's often not acknowledged to be a language, but it is. When you don't understand it, then you realize it is. But I think there are some advantages to that. What you're talking about is called code switching, which is actually a gift. But I just want to hear what everyone else in the group thinks as well, because we're all from different backgrounds. We've all had experiences where we either speak another language or move to another country, or both. So Matilda, what have your experiences been with regard to your accent and language?
Well, I think I have accent in all languages that I speak. So for me, having an accent is a part of who I am. I am born and raised in Iran, but I have an accent, and that accent indicates that I'm Armenian. And actually, it's kind of nice thing to have. I never thought that I have to get rid of that accent, although I'm born and study in that country. It's kind of weird that somebody's born, raised there, and you have an accent. But most Armenians do have. So yeah, I thought that accent was giving me certain opportunities that wasn't giving to maybe the other people. And moving from Iran, same thing. Even when I go to Armenia and I speak Armenian, they understand that I'm from Iran. So I guess I never thought of accent anything else than something where it shows who you are and where it's coming from. And I love it. Even me, I mean, you can hear my English with the accent, and I think it's exotic. I never thought I should change my accent to become really American, because I'm not.
So did you ever have a negative experience anywhere, Matilda, in your travel between the three countries?
Sure. I think there is a lot of negative. I experienced some negative points in LA. It's interesting. In LA, people really try to speak like American, whereas in New York, it was something that people appreciate your accent. So when I'm in LA, especially, this is the funny part, when I'm among peers from the same region, like Armenians from Iran, if you speak English with accent, they look at you like, oh, you're not that smart. It's interesting. So yeah, with people here in LA, I try to speak a better English, I mean, American accent. But when I'm in New York, I just speak free, and I actually more emphasize on my accent because it gets more curiosity for people. Oh, where are you from? Oh, from Iran, that's exotic. Whereas in LA, if you're from Iran, it's not that exotic.
Okay, well, let's investigate a bit further and see if it differs in different countries, and if so, who does it differ with? So, Victor, do you want to read the comments for us, because I think they're relevant as well?
Yeah, we have a comment from Serge Pakarian. He says, as a French, it's an advantage. Most of the people are considering this accent as an elegant touch in the world. That's from Sacha. Hey, Sacha.
Okay, all right. So it depends. That's starting to suggest that it depends which country and who's perceiving it. Paula, you've got experience in France. Do you agree or disagree with Sasha? And what else can you add from your experience?
Well, I think it's different when you're coming from other countries and try to learn the French language or try to speak like French do. I think a lot of people, they will judge you for your accent. Maybe it's because of ignorance, xenophobia, or just a desire to know where you are from, because they don't know where you are from and the accent is weird the first time they heard it, so they really want to know, they are curious. So it's very different. But with my experience in France, I arrived in France in 2011, and my French was very mediocre. I really wasn't really great in French. and I was mixing French, English, and trying to get along, but it was really, really hard in the beginning to understand French, and especially also, I mean, French people, they are not very patient. They're like, okay, that's what you're trying to say. Okay, they can't really try to listen a lot to what you're saying, but I'm grateful that I grew up in international schools. Even when I was a kid in Morocco and Egypt or other schools, I was always in international schools, and the accent, it was part of your identity. Is something is part of you, and everyone was different in the international school. You can see a lot of people in different countries. They come to Morocco, and I was really grateful for that experience. Even in Egypt, I was in American high school, and we had like very international people from all over the world, and everybody had an accent, and nobody was really judging your accent. So in France, it was somehow different because I understand when someone has an accent, they might criticize or judge them in a different way. Of course, I'm talking a general way in France, not everybody judge, but I think expats here, they have a little bit hard time to learn French and to have the perfect French accent. Maybe Sasha will agree with me. Where are you?
Okay, so you're talking there really about the differences that different people may have with adopting a new language, and the accent, how their accent will affect that and make them stand out as distinctive in a country, say, that values their language very highly, like France. Victor, what's your experience? Because coming from Nigeria, English is one of the main languages there, and you came to England. Did you face any challenges with your accent, or was it similar to Howler's experience?
Thank you, Carla. The accent thing for being a typical Nigerian is kind of like up and down because, given our background alone, Nigeria we have about over 300 distinct languages. So, and the British, they kind of made English the unifying language, which is the common language for everyone. And we had to like adapt it to become our own, which is the Pidgin English, which kind of related to what's it called, to the Jamaican patois. So we knew about accent because we were kind of taking the piece among ourselves in Nigeria. Because if you go to the West, they have it is mostly the Yoruba speaking, the Yoruba dominant language. So when they try to speak English or the Pidgin English, we kind of take the piece. So if you go to the North, when they try to speak, because they're more of the Hausas and the Fulanis, so more dominant there. So when they try to speak the common language, which is the English, the accent is very different. So we are already aware, but it wasn't really affecting. It's just something that we take the piece of. We just have fun with it. It didn't really affect anything. So because if you speak the English and you don't understand, we revert straight into Pidgin English, or we go to our local dialect. So life goes on. But moving from Nigeria and coming to the United Kingdom, to London, to school, I find out that most of the time when I try to speak, I kind of speak very fast, just as normal, speak very fast. So I had one of these interventions from one of my career mentors. I say, you know what, Victor, we do not understand most things that you're saying. I say, what? You get it? So he now said, you know what, if you try to speak slowly, then maybe we have a chance of actually hearing what you wanted to say. I said, oh my God. Okay. So since then up till now, I've been very conscious of how I speak. So sometimes I just go and sometimes I catch myself, I come back and I try to just speak fast. And actually, I've actually lost 1 or 2 jobs regards how I actually like communicate, because my accent, my Nigerian accent, is so like direct in your face. So there's nowhere to like switch or go. I don't think I have the ability, like Simon's family, to go telephone voice. So I would be I'll be caught off guard when it comes to telephone voice. But I've been being a podcaster has actually helped me to like be more confident in hearing my own voice in this United Kingdom.
Okay, great. Okay, so we've got all different experiences and different perspectives. And for the audience, we'd love to hear from you. There's a question up on the screen for you. Have you ever felt the need to prove yourself based on your accent? So that could be a telephone voice, if you've got a telephone voice, or any other attempt to blend in or hide your identity by shifting the way you talk. I wonder there as well, listening to you, Victor, and also to Howler and Matilda before that, where the boundary lies between the prejudices of accents and language, and how much of that has to do with things like colonialism, imperialism, and class. Because I think there are some issues there. When Simon opened the discussion at the beginning, he was talking about some of the issues that perhaps arose because of the Caribbean people when our families first came to the UK. The world wasn't as mixed. There wasn't as much multiculturalism as there is now. So there was less acceptance in certain countries of the others or the foreigners. And I think that probably is the reason why a lot of Jamaican people who have very deep and broad accents maybe felt the need to have a telephone voice. It's actually a joke amongst Caribbean people because so many of our parents used to do it. But I wonder, Simon, do you think some of that was more to do with race issues or class isms or anything like that, more than it was about accents?
Just before I answer that, shall we read out the comments? We've got 2 comments from Sasha and Donna. Victor?
The first one I'll take is from Sasha. It says, an accent could determine also your social level. It's not only about culture, but also it's about showing your education. Okay. And from Donna Francis says, I think people have a preconceived idea of how you will sound based on your appearance personally. Or personally, it has been both, as people are either pleasantly surprised or threatened. Yeah.
Yeah, so back to...
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. So back to the question, Carla. Yes, it was the 60s or late 50s, depending on when your parents or your grandparents come over. And there obviously was race issues. And also, even if you put race issues aside, if you're applying for a job, you want people to feel that you fit in and that they feel comfortable with you. So I had a conversation, for instance, I had a conversation with a lady in the taxi today, and she was Polish. And I said, you don't really sound Polish. And I picked her up from Notting Hill, which is a very rich part of town. And she was putting like the Queen's English on accent, but that's most of the companies that she keeps. But she didn't quite have it, but she said it's better for her in her world and what she does. I can't remember the job she does, that she speaks clearly and in a regionalist accent, which many people say the Queen's accent is a regionalist accent. It's not defined for any one specific region of the country. That could be debatable, but originally all TV shows were done along that lines. But back to the race issue, yes. If you, in the 60s, if you sounded white, then you'll probably get what you want on the phone. If you sounded that you just got off the boat, then you probably wouldn't. But I actually had another I had another passenger last night. He was Nigerian, brought up in England, and he now lives in America. And I said, he's been in America since he's 10 and he's in his mid-30s now. I said, you don't sound very American. He said, no, I want to hold my accent. I said, oh, is it? He said, yeah, to be honest, it's mainly because it's easier to get women with a British accent. So that was his thing. So every accent has its pros and cons, and you need to know when to use it and when not to use it. But back to you, Carla.
Okay, all right. So Sasha says says an interesting point, actually. I agree with this, Sasha. He says, an accent could determine also your social level. And I think that's very true in English context. So and this is the reason why when we were at the beginning, when I said about there's a famous study out of Bath Spa University here in the UK that shows that in general in the UK, people tend to be biased towards certain accents. One of them being Birmingham, another one also being the Liverpool accent. Both of them are very broad, very strong accents. And the perception is that those people are less trustworthy, less educated, and which is completely not true. As the study elaborated on, it's not true at all, but it is a perception that people have. And it is very common in English society for people to be judged as less than based on their accent. So the more closely you adhere to that British standard English, which is a very southern type of accent as well, the more educated or classy you are deemed to be. And the more northern or less polished your accent is, the less classy you are. I wonder, is that true in anyone else's background? Matilda, is that true in Armenia? Is it true in America? Is it true in France? According to your experience, are there different accents that people frown upon based on maybe class? They think they're less classy because of the way they speak?
I think, yeah, very true. Depends what kind of accent we're talking about. I mean, if you have a little bit of American accent when you're speaking New York accent, when you're speaking French, I think it's cute. It shows like where you're coming from, and why should you blend in, for God's sake? You're from another place. You're from New York. Why should you blend in with French people? The fact that you're even hanging out with French and you're speaking French, that shows that you know another language, and you put the effort, dedication, and love to learn another language. So, but maybe if I'm in Iran and someone comes and talks with like a weird or ghetto in a sense accent, then I will judge. I wouldn't want to be around them. So I guess I'm prejudiced, and I like certain accents over the other accents. And as Sasha wrote before, maybe French accent is cute. I see him when he's talking English with people, in here in LA. And a lot of Americans, they like his accent. They think, oh, he's French, and they start talking about wine and champagne. Whereas I'm sure if somebody comes Afghani and says, oh, I'm from Afghan and I'll have a certain accent, not necessarily they will accept him the way they maybe like to hang out with him at the moment, So I think certain accents has a higher level of acceptance.
Okay, all right. Victor, can you read the comment from Sasha? Because I think Sasha's backing Matilda up here.
Yeah. Yeah, Sasha Serge, Pakarian. Say, most of the time, I try to stay far from basic people. Just with the way they express themselves, the words they use, or the accent is an expression about who they are and where they are coming from. An accent tells a lot about your education. Well, I would not agree with that. You get, because why is that? I told you Nigeria has so many languages and the accents from all parts. So now, the most favored accent in the upper class in Nigeria now, it is the foreign accent, which is mostly British. The Queens. We have so many second generation, third generation Nigerian British who are in Nigeria right now, just left uni. They're going back to just try to further up themselves in whatever ladder. So they come with these accents. But I tell you, most of the guys that are in Nigeria who had great degrees, great work ethic, great professionalism, they speak still the same accent, but they are more intelligent than just the accent, because with the accent, they use that for mostly, what's it called? Mostly customer service and TVs. radios where they hear the voice but when it comes to the core competencies, we have people locally who are more intelligent, who are more creative, who are more than the perceived. Because you come in and you have a degree from Sunderland or you have a degree from Oxford. Oxford is great. But when they come down there, they still have the local guys who I give them like head to head, man to man, and they like. So I wouldn't really 100% agree that your accent is an expression of where you are coming from, or an expression of your educational level. Because there are some people who there are people from the the south part of Nigeria where I'm from. We call them the Calabars. Back in the 60s or the 50s, most of their parents were into menial jobs of the au pairs, the house boys or the house girls, the servants. So it was a stereotype for those people. But when times have changed right now, whereby they are one of the most educated, one of the most learned people in Nigeria, and their accent is still the same. So when we see them and they just speak, we just say, you are from here. So we just like give them the hand. But when they start articulating, when they start speaking to you and they doing some presentations, you'll be like, okay, wow, he knows what he's talking about. So I could understand that it's preconceived, it's a prejudiced, it's a prejudiced vice. But if you go to the next level, you'll find out that you miss out on so many great conversation.
Okay.
And what just to add to that, correct me if you think this is wrong, Victor. When you go back to Nigeria and you've been studying here, you're mainly going back. You're not necessarily going back as an entrepreneur. You're used to working for people. So if you're working in a professional environment, you may speak in let's say high class English way. But if you've been brought up and you've become an entrepreneur and you've educated yourself along the way and you've become innovative, then you don't really have to worry about speaking any manners because your skills are within and people are coming to you for your product, if you see what I mean. So that's what I would argue. And if you look at even in America, you've got the rappers, the 50 Cents, the Jay-Z's, they haven't changed the way they speak. They have still are who they are. But now they're billionaires and they're sitting down with other billionaire people who would never even blink at them. But they still, and they haven't even necessarily got a degree. But they may get honorable degrees, but they've got there. And they're well established. Because of the innovation of music or films or whatever they've been doing. Back to you, Carl.
Okay, so Haula, what do you think about this comment from Sasha and what Victor and Simon have been saying? Does an accent tell you anything about a person's education?
I think because I was reflecting about this, and I think it's it's the fault of colonial countries, because, for example, if you see, for example, in Paris, if you go outside Paris, the education and the treatment of teachers outside is different, and people they are getting not the same education if you are living in Paris. So if you have an accent, the accent is not your fault. It's not inherited from your parents or it's not genes. You are learning it from the environment that you have around you. So I remember my grandma, she was telling me, and she has a perfect French accent, because during the colonization, there were perfect teachers that they had this good intentions to teach Moroccans French. And now when you see a French teacher going to Morocco, they just want to go for vacation and not the purpose to teach Moroccan how to speak French perfectly. So I think it's also the generation different and how people have these intentions to transmit and to give their best to the other people to learn the language and the accent.
Okay, interesting. I wonder if any of you, and this is also to the audience, Victor, you can read the comment in a second, but to the audience and also to you guys, have you ever felt reluctant to speak in any particular circle based on your accent? Victor, so just hold on to that question, process that for a minute while Victor reads the comment.
Yeah, we have Sasha. Yeah, Sasha. I'm talking about the vocabulary people use. It's kind of accent. In France, if someone use wish, okay, wish, I know I don't need to interact with him. The number of words people use determine also the level of personal reflection. If the number of words you use is very low, the education is very low. Okay.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Okay, Howlett, enlighten us. What's wish?
Actually, it's an Algerian dialect term to say, well, yes, what do you want? Like, you know, and they use it in the in poor areas, like in the I don't know how to say that, the areas where there are like poor people and stuff. So they use this kind of expression to speak with each other. It's basically like like the dealers and people like who doesn't have a really good education. They use this kind of language, like slang. And also there's like a French slang, like people use some words. I don't use these because I don't like it, but there are people who use this kind of language. And it's because of the environment. Because if you go outside Paris and you see the environment there, it's very different. The way people speak, it's very different. The school, it's very different. So again, there is a real inequality that I see in France. And maybe Sasha will agree with me on this.
Just to jump in there, I'm not totally disagreeing with what Howard is saying, but if you think of dialect is something that comes out of practicality. So if I'm a criminal or I'm from a working class background, then my dialect would be straight to the point, because I may be in a hostile environment if I'm a drug dealer, let's say, or things like that. And so your language becomes very practical for how you live your life. So where you've got the upper class people who may speak in a very je ne sais quoi point of view and stretch out, so they've got all the time in the world, they got money. But if I'm a poor man, I'm on a market seller, do you want a monk? Do you want to buy? And I end up talking like that all the time, and the business goes, and it doesn't mean I'm not educated. It just means that's how I do business. And that's how it works. So I just want to express the importance of, just because you come, I believe your accent defines where you were brought up. It's very easy to hear when someone's speaking, oh, he's from East London, he's from South London, or they're from blah, 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 and all that kind of thing. I don't disagree with that at all. It makes common sense. But just because you speak a certain way doesn't mean you're uneducated, doesn't mean you're less educated than someone else. And there's also book smart and street smart. And I'd rather be street smart than book smart, because you can become very wealthy being street smart, and book smart, you'll just be like, yeah. You may not, have this knowledge, but you haven't got the common sense to put it all together to really utilize it. But we've got more comments, so back to you, Victor.
Yeah, well, we have a comment from Ekram Arma. Ekram, forgive me if I butcher the name. Yeah, there is another term beside accent, which linguists call sculpture or melody in speaking, which is a clear impact on the pronunciation, not on the level of origin or race, but even on the level of indigenous people of the region. All of this affects social relations and the labor market positively and negatively. So we have another comment. We have another comment from Rose Courthurst. Pardon me, Rose. Your name is lovely. Yeah, I don't agree that if you use less words, that means you are less educated. If you need people to understand what you're trying to convey. Interesting.
Okay, interesting. So we've got two quite interesting comments there. So Akram is talking there about the sculptural melody, or I guess the cadence and the rhythm of people's accents as well, also determining not only how they pronounce things, but the way that they are perceived in terms of their social status and also their labor market value, I guess. And also Rose is saying that she disagrees that if you use less words, that means you're less educated. Matilda, I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
I'm going to agree with Sasha. I mean, I like the accent of listening people from different countries. But if you're a young, educated person, you should get along with the capital. Sorry, but maybe I'm snobby here, but I like the capital accent. If I'm speaking Farsi and I know someone is from somewhere else, or I feel it's not educated, or the English as well, they're not speaking proper English, of course, if they're American or English from England, I feel like, no, I'm not interested. I will judge them. I'm going to be very honest. I'm going to judge them. I'm going to judge their education. I'm going to judge how they speak. Now, if it's a French or if it's, I don't know, even Afghani speaking English, I appreciate that because I know that they're putting the effort to learn another language, and it's normal for an adult to have an accent. I'm sure if I learn German, I will have a terrible accent. And it's okay, but the fact that I speak German and put the hours to learn and appreciate another language should be praised. So yeah, if you are from the country and you have the accent of that country and you're young and you're educated, I think you should put the time and effort to navigate your accent situation. Otherwise, why are you even trying to be somebody in that society? Sorry.
Yeah, how much of this then relates to money and our perception of people with certain accents or people with certain vocabulary, certain pronunciation, being more wealthy and therefore more valuable? I wonder. That's what I'm thinking. Hawla, you're nodding. What do you think?
Well, I think if you are in the corporate world, or you're trying to get contracts, or you're trying to get, great networking, high class networking, well, you need to, maybe the accent can get in the way. And I think in France also it depends on where you come from. So if you are Spanish or German and you try to speak French, it's so cute. But if you are Arabic and try to speak French, it's like, okay, like Matilda said. But I think also business in some European countries, if you have the perfect accent, you can get more business done. And it's a fact. It's a fact. People will judge you for the accent, and it's a fact. You don't have to be emotional about it. It's a fact that people will judge.
Yeah. I agree with that, judging you for the accent. You could have a West Country accent, but it's also based on ignorance and understanding. If someone speaks with a farmer accent in England, they're kind of, or what we see as a West Country accent, they maybe look, oh, not too bright. But farmers get paid millions of pounds through their crops, so they're wealthy. If you're in I use an example of rap. If you're in a rap industry and you want to get contracts and stuff, you don't have to speak in a posh voice, and you're still going to get paid millions because they know the value of what you do. And if you did come with a posh voice, they probably wouldn't even consider signing you. In the trading world, you could either have a Cockney accent or a public schoolboy, a posh English accent, because those are the two accents that dominate. They have different levels, but they dominate the industry. So I wouldn't say any one accent is considered financially viable over every spectrum. It's different spectrums and different industries depending on what you're trying to move forward. But yes, obviously in the customer service world, there is a blanket accent generally, especially in London, where you are expected to speak the Queen's English. And if you do make a complaint, you'll be probably taken more seriously if you sound very posh. And then they think you might be, have you really understand, and you may take action. But anyway, back to you, Carla.
Yeah,
interesting. So if you're making a customer service complaint, research which accent to give the complaint in to get to influence the outcome. That's quite interesting. Victor, can we have your views and also have the comments?
Yeah, okay. I'll take the comment first before I say my views. Yeah, Sasha, nice one. Yeah, Sasha says, personally, it's a choice. I am selective about my relationships, me too. And it's clearly not about money, but before all, about education and values. I don't need to interact with drug dealers to be honest, which is great. It's a good thing, Sasha. Yeah, but to your question, Carla, money. I think when it comes to money and accent, I think it's a middle class thing. You get so the rich people, the top 1%, the only accent they understand from my study of money and entrepreneurship and wealth, the only accent they understand is green. The Chinese man coming to do business in London does not need to know English. All he needs to understand is, does the number make sense? If he goes to Saudi Arabia, does the number make sense? The only thing that cannot lie is numbers. So,
But
it is just the middle class that is playing this accent game of who is this, who is that, who is this. Listen, the guy that sold, what's it called? The guy that sold WhatsApp for $1 billion or 2 billion or 3 billion, he's not worried
4.5
about his
billion.
accent. You get? He's not worried about his accent. The boys from Nigeria who are getting evaluation for your fintech innovation that got investment of 100, 200 million, they're not worried about their what's it called? About their accent. They know that they know their stuff. So if you come to their domain, they will speak the language of their domain. They don't care about your Cockney, or they don't care about your French, or they don't care about your British accent. No. What they are concerned about is how to deliver the goods, not how you speak or not how you carry yourself. They can hire PRO guys for that. They can hire the middle class to do the accenting for 200, 300 pounds an hour just to translate for them. But they are not really bothered about that. That's what I was saying.
I was just about to jump in there. It's very interesting what you're saying, Victor, because when I was in university, and a lot of people are surprised I went to uni, by the way. When I was in uni, there was my friend, and his brother was very intelligent in tech, and he became a lecturer, but he also owned his own tech company. And he was explaining to me that when these big corporations, BBC and whatever, come to him, if you dress in a suit, they don't like it. They want to see some kind of geeky hairstyle and you're virtually in your pajamas, and they feel comfortable that you know all about computers. Obviously, this was in the early 90s. You feel you know all about computers because that was that industry. And they may not understand all the jargon, but they will employ somebody because all they're seeing is this guy. I may not understand everything he's saying, but it resonates to money. So I don't care how he speaks and I don't care how he looks. I just want his money or I just want him to make money for me. So people will compromise what I'm really saying here based on your accents and your appearance and where you come from if you can make them wealthy. Over to you, Carl.
So it seems to be then
we
that,
got a comment, sorry.
Yeah, it seems to be, it depends on you and the way that you perceive the world and what you value in people then. So if you value money, you have no regard for their language, their accent or anything else. I guess you just see the money. Okay, Victor, can we have the comments? Unmute yourself, Victor.
The comment from Anders Kader. Hey, Anders. Yeah, just like skin color, it generally affects how you are met. Socialite also affects how people meet you. Okay, especially in the Western society, at least until you are on a level of wealth that lifts you above. I agree with you, Anders. And we have a second comment here from Anders. Still, I think that you are affected in how some other people view you. Sadly, because many people are just influenced by post-colonialistic views, which is what I agree with you, my brother, 100%. I agree with you because people judge you whether you like it or not. It is human nature.
I'll jump in there. I agree with that too. I've been in certain environments and people are speaking in a posh manner, and you're kind of, you don't really want to speak unless you've got something, unless it's your domain of how, thing. But if they're all that what we call the yaya crowd, you just leave them over there to do their thing,
Yeah, but what I would say, what I would say to that is that I will constantly say, try to just, you can't do anything about your accent, in my opinion. What you can do, what you can do about how you present yourself is to learn how to communicate effectively, regardless of what accent you have. Learn how to communicate effectively. Your tonality, your posture, how you carry yourself. See, there's so many things that has to do with communication, and it's not just the accent.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, Victor. I think sometimes you find yourself in certain situations where people prejudge you. I know we had a couple of comments earlier that were making the connection between knowledge and accent, or knowledge and the way you speak. And while there may be some credibility to the vocabulary, for example, I think sometimes we can also get tricked, and we can miss out on getting the true value out of people when we judge them. Matilda, what do you think? What thoughts are you having around that?
I think, the same way that you dress and people judge you based on how you dress, how you speak should be judged as well. I don't understand why people make big deal out of it. I feel like if you're young, you're educated, you need to work on it. You need to present yourself properly. The same way that you have to present yourself dress-wise properly. You have the energy to put the effort in. Doesn't matter where you're coming from, what finances you have, or what kind of a background you had. You have to put the effort to speak with a good language, with with great words, so people can understand you and you can inspire other people. If you're, I judge people when they're young and they're not putting the effort. Young meaning they're young adults. Now, if it's my grandma speaking with accent, okay, the time is past for her to learn something, or to learn to change the accent, or the time wasn't at that time. Maybe the situation was different. You need to hire a teacher. You have to, right now you can go YouTube and Google it, and you can change your accent to make it more proper, to advance in life if you feel like your accent is stopping you. And you should polish yourself all the time as a human being. Doesn't matter where you're coming from or what status you have. You need to work on yourself to go forward better and better. And accent is one of them. And if one day I speak French, I'm sure I will have an accent, but I will work on it to minimize it so the other people can understand me when I'm speaking French. But a little bit of an accent, I'll keep it. So it's good. It's where I'm coming from, and it shows my identity. But having an accent, that's what I think.
How do you define proper? What's a proper accent, Matilda? And then I'd like Howla to give her opinion as well. How would you define proper when you said someone should have a proper accent?
I think proper accent is the accent of the capital city. I don't know. I love capital cities. I love living in capital cities. Don't look at me in LA now. But I think cosmopolitan cities have a nice accent. I like that accent. If I'm copying French, if I want to have a French accent, I will make sure that I have Parisian accent, not something else.
Okay, so if you were going to learn the English accent, do you prefer to have a bath or a bath, Matilda?
Bath.
A bath, okay. So you're with Simon down there in the south. You are not up here with me in the north, because up here we have a bath.
But just to jump in there, one thing I like what Matilda said, but when you about what the accent of that city is. But if you look at it, the working class is always a greater population in any society. So it should be a Cockney accent or a street accent, which is more going to be more prominent than the thing, because the wealthy are usually always a minority by far. You're like looking at wealthy is like 5 or 20% of the population. There's no way any city, maybe a village you have it wealthy, but in the cities it's run by the working class. So, you know, that's why I just want to throw it in there. But Sahala, sorry, back to you.
Yeah, well, I have a small story about the accent, because I remember when I was an intern in an international company, and I had to do learning for people on a data visualization app. And my manager gave me always people from India, Vietnam, and he took always people from America. And I said to him, why you always pick American clients and you give me Indian and Asian and all? Why? I mean, I want to connect with Americans too. And he said to me, well, to be honest, I don't understand anything from what they are saying, the Indians and the other people, because the accent is so strong and I can't understand. And now you get along with them and you do have the patience to understand. So I think if you are in an international company, you need to do the effort to understand all accents. As an individual who is traveling and doing a lot of business abroad, you need to understand and give this patience for the other people to understand you as well. So I think it's very important to not judge the person in front of you and really understand what they are saying, even if it's a little bit hard. And I think too, if you are learning a new language, you need to enjoy the process of learning without having this aim to have a perfect accent, because you can't have a perfect accent in 1 or 2 years. It takes time to have a good accent, and you need to be proud of your accent right now and try to evolve of yourself and try to have more vocabulary and clarity while speaking, even if you have an accent. We all have accents here, right? So, I mean, let's celebrate our accents.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We've got some comments from Sasha and also some couple of interesting comments as well coming in.
Yes,
Good one there from Anders.
when I see Sasha's comment, I'm like, ooh, yeah. Yeah, Sasha, you're on fire. Sasha Serge Bakarian. Forgive me the way I pronounce your name. You know, I hope it's correct. Yeah, appearance is a message. Accent are also a part of it. I agree with that. So,
Victor, sorry, you have to say it with a French accent. Pacarion. The last name it has to be French.
okay, let me make an effort because I'm good with names. Sasha Serge Bakarian. Sasha Serge Bakarian. See, appearance. It's you say appearance. Appearance is a message. Accents are also a part of it. So it helps superficially, but it's just the first impression. You don't judge only people on the first impression. Sasha, I think the world needs to be like you, who don't judge by first impression. Yeah, Anders Kader. Yes, Anders. Sometimes people use the accent or way to speak to put themselves above other people. Oh, that's interesting. And again, from Sasha Serge Bakarian, just right here is very interesting because the way you express yourself in the podcast is telling a lot about telling a lot about you all individually, about accent, tonality, and the words you use. Great, great, great. I agree with you, Sasha.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
there's another comment from Rose.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Rose. Okay. From Rose Colhost. Rose, pardon me about your last name, but Colhost. Yeah. Colhost. I'm trying my best. I think that The London upper class accent is commonly thought of as a UK accent. I was working with a famous celebrity and she didn't even want me to shut up. She's American. She didn't want me to shut up. She's American. So, yeah. So you get the point now. Yeah, for me, we got your question, Carla, about the perfect accent. I would say there is no perfect accent, but just greater communication level. That's what I would say. To be clear, as a Nigerian who lives in England, who lives in London, I've worked in different parts. And when you go up north, you hear different. When you go west, you go to Birmingham, you go to Norwich, you go to see. They're just different accent. Not to talk about Essex. You can't win in the accent game in this town. What cuts across is just, hey, can you just like slow down and be more eloquent and be more clear, succinct in your vocabulary? So that's my take. There's no perfect accent, just increase communication skill, better communication skills. That's what I'll say. And
just to jump in there, I think in any country there is a kind of acceptable language, acceptable accent, and it's usually the accent the person presents the weather with, because the weather is something that everybody needs to be able to understand. So if your accent's too strong, you shouldn't probably be presenting the weather on the news, on the TV. And if your accent's, when you think about it though, you see what I'm saying? If you're presenting the news and only 5% of your population can understand, you're not very effective. So you need to have an accent that is acceptable and understood and clear. And so what I'd say, if I went to Japan and I was a Japanese person or I understood Japanese, they're going to put someone who can speak in a manner that the whole country can understand, and who's not going to be from the smaller echelons of that country. But back to you, Carla.
Yeah, I'd like to take this final comment from Anders that's just come in before we just go around and summarize. So, Victor, can you read that for us?
Yes, one from Anders. See, in Sweden, it's common that migrants and other people that has limitation in the Swedish language or an accent that reveal that they've come from poorer areas are belittled by some people.
Country people understand that you're putting the effort to communicate with them. You should be very proud of who you are. But for the language that you're from, I think you have to put an effort to reduce your accent, and so you can go places in your country, your own country.
Okay, and Howler, your final comments?
I think your accent is something you must be proud about it, and you don't hide where you come from. And making mistakes, it's a part of the process, and it's something normal to have, so you can have success and make progress to new level in the language that you're learning, and learn more about the culture, the books, the people. I mean, these are all part of you and part of the place you are. So when you are interacting with people around you, regardless of the accent, you have the culture, and you have a rich background.
Awesome. Okay, and Simon?
Yeah, I'd say your accent is who you are, and in the sense of where you come from, but you can learn to articulate yourself still using your accent to get what you want in life. And sometimes it's also horses for courses. So learning another accent doesn't really matter. Doesn't really do any harm. It's just like learning another language.
Okay, and Victor, tell us about your podcast, and then we'll take these final comments from Anders.
Okay. Yeah, I would just like to say just one word about your last question. What I would say is, as an immigrant myself to this country, the best thing regards how your accent affects your lifestyle is to immediately start learning the local language and be more clear in your communication as soon as possible, as fast as possible. Know the dominant communication style and try to train yourself on that very style as soon and as fast as possible. Yes, and the comments from Anders is a study in Sweden show that working class people are very underrepresented in Swedish media. Okay, that's R, and indirectly relates to your subject of your accent affects your lifestyle. So I am Victor Osio. I'm the host of the Diaspora Entrepreneurs Podcast. You can find me on Spotify, Stitcher, all your major platforms, and also on Google, and also on YouTube. So thank you very much I just want to say thank you to Sasha, our biggest fan. You deserve Simon's pen. So Simon is sending the pen across. And to Rose, thank you, Rose. And Simon is sending the pen across. To Akran and Donna, thank you guys for hanging out with us, and your comments has been very, very fantastic and interesting. Let's keep the conversation going. Yeah, back to you, Carla.
Okay, and Simon, tell us about your podcast. Unmute yourself. Communication, Simon, communication.
Yeah, Taxi Chronicles. I've got my official pens coming to city near you. People from around the world traveling through London, they get in my taxi and they tell their story or they talk about their profession. There's loads of different stories, from true crime to career to entrepreneurship and much more. They're short 5 to 20 minutes episodes, so there's something there for everybody. We post every day at 8 a.m. British Standard Time. Back over to you, Howla.
Thanks, Simon. So I'm the host of the podcast, Women with Stories. Tune in for the new episode I have uploaded yesterday about how to deal with loneliness, and I would love to have your feedback on it. Over to you, Matilda.
And I'm the host of Coffee with Matilda, A Journey to South, and it's on all podcast platforms and YouTube and Facebook. Over to you, Carla.
Okay, and I'm the host of the Wonder and Wellbeing podcast, which is all about education and well-being, and it's for parents and teachers. And I think in summary today, we've learned quite a lot. So we have answered our question, does accents affect your lifestyle? Absolutely, yes. Does it affect your opportunities? Possibly. And does it affect the way people see you? Yes, according to our discussion tonight, it does. But I think some things that we can take away from tonight are that it's more important to be able to communicate well. You can't always change your accent because it's based on where you're born and your background. And even if you improve your language skills, you're still going to have that little bit of an indicator there that says where you come from. But what's more important is that you communicate clearly and that you work on developing yourself. But also a comment that came out from Anders, which I like particularly, is that we don't want to judge people unfavorably based on their accent. We want to take the time to get to know them and to treat them with dignity and respect in whatever we do. So until next time, we look forward to having you all join us again and share your comments and your insights with us. You can follow us on YouTube, here on Facebook. You can catch us on Instagram. And if you like our content, please share it. Please continue to support us, and we look forward to seeing you all again with us in our next show. And does Simon sell merchandise? Well, you can find out. You can reach out to Simon. You can follow his podcast. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you, and he'd love to send you a free pen. So we'd like to see you all again with us next week in the same place, 7 p.m. British Standard Time and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
All right, guys.
All right.